My backyard pond became a neighborhood scandal when the HOA slapped me with a $5,000 fine for owning too much water. They claimed my peaceful koi pond violated their absurd rules, threatening to drain it and ruin my sanctuary. But when their president, Karen, pushed too far, I found a loophole that turned her own regulations against her. What happened next left her garden party in ruins and the entire HOA board scrambling to save face. How far would you go to protect what is yours when petty tyrants try to control your home? I'd always dreamed of a quiet life, and when I found the little house on Willow Lane, it felt perfect. Nestled in a tidy suburban community with manicured lawns and friendly waves, it was the kind of place where kids rode bikes until dusk and neighbors swapped gardening tips. I'm a single dad, raising my daughter, Lily, and our 2 koi fish in a backyard pond I'd built with my own hands. That pond was our sanctuary lily named the Fish Bubbles and Goldie, and we'd spend evenings watching them glide under the lily pads, their orange scales catching the sunset. The community, called Sunny Acres, seemed idyllic, with its welcoming potlucks and neatly printed HOA newsletters. But beneath the surface, something was brewing. The HOA board, led by Karen, a woman with a clipboard always in hand and a smile that never reached her eyes, had a reputation for control. I didn't think much of it at first, just another group of busybodies enforcing paint colors and lawn heights. I kept my yard neat, paid my dues, and figured I'd stay off their radar. Little did I know my pond, our quiet slice of peace, was about to become their target. Karen had been eyeing my property during her routine inspections, her pen scratching notes I couldn't see. I'd catch her glancing over my fence, her lips pursed, as if my pond offended her perfectly curated vision of Sunny Acres. I brushed it off, thinking it was just her personality. But soon an envelope arrived, its official HOA letterhead glaring like a warning. Inside was a notice that would turn my life upside down, hinting at rules I'd never heard of and a fight I didn't see coming. The letter landed like a punch I didn't see coming. Its cold, official tone declared my pond an unauthorized water feature, violating some obscure rule about excessive water ownership. The fine? A staggering $5,000, due in 30 days, or they drain the pond and slap a lien on my house. I stood in my kitchen, the paper trembling in my hand, as Lily fed Bubbles and Goldie outside, oblivious to the threat. The rule made no sense. Nobody in Sunny Acres had ever mentioned water limits. My pond was barely 500 gallons, a modest circle of stone and water I'd built to teach Lily about ecosystems. How could this be excessive? I marched to the next HOA meeting, expecting a misunderstanding I could clear up. The community center was packed, neighbors shifting uncomfortably in folding chairs as Karen stood at the podium, her voice sharp and commanding. She ran the meeting like a courtroom, her eyes scanning for dissent. When I raised my hand to question the fine, her smile tightened. "The bylaws clearly state," she said, flipping through a thick binder nobody else had access to. "Water features over 100 gallons require board approval I'd never known to seek." Whispers rippled through the room. Some neighbors looked sympathetic, others avoided my gaze. I pressed for details, but Karen cut me off, citing ongoing compliance reviews. The meeting ended with her promising to follow up, leaving me with nothing but a sinking feeling. Back home, I scoured the HOA bylaws online, but the document was a maze of vague clauses and outdated jargon. There was a mention of water features buried on page 47, but it was so poorly worded that it could mean anything. I called a lawyer friend who warned that HOAs often hide behind legal gray areas to flex power. They're banking on you giving up, he said. But giving up wasn't an option, not with Lily's pond at stake. She'd started asking why I looked so worried, and I couldn't bear to tell her our fish might lose their home. Days later, another letter arrived. This one demanded I drain the pond within a week or face daily fines of $100. My stomach churned as I read it, standing by the pond where Lily was tossing pebbles, giggling as the fish chased the ripples. I tried reasoning with Karen, knocking on her pristine colonial-style house across the street. She answered with that same icy smile, saying, "Rules are rules, and your pond's a liability." When I asked about the liability, she vaguely mentioned environmental concerns and shut the door. I noticed her own yard had a massive sprinkler system, guzzling water daily, but apparently that wasn't excessive. The harassment didn't stop there. Karen's inspections became daily. She'd linger by my fence, scribbling notes, sometimes with another board member in tow, their whispers loud enough to make my skin crawl. Neighbors started distancing themselves, afraid to cross Karen's invisible line. One evening, old Mr. Jenkins from next door pulled me aside. "She's got the board wrapped around her finger," he muttered. Last year, she fined the Millers for their kids' treehouse. They moved out after the legal fees. His words hit hard. Karen wasn't just petty. She was a bully with power. I started digging deeper, spending nights combing through public records and online forums. Sunny Acres had a history of Karen's overreach fines for unapproved mailboxes, and Flower Colors even a case where she de-forced a family to remove a wheelchair ramp for aesthetic violations. The more I learned, the angrier I got. This wasn't about my pond. It was about control. Karen thrived on making people feel small, and I was her latest target. But anger alone wouldn't save Bubbles and Goldie. I submitted a formal appeal to the HOA, citing the vague bylaw and requesting a hearing. The response came swiftly. My appeal was under review, but the fines would continue. Then came the notices posted on my front door, bright orange and impossible to miss, labeling my property non-compliant. Neighbors gawked as they passed, and Lily started asking why the mean lady kept coming by. I shielded her from the truth, but the stress was eating at me. My savings couldn't handle $5,000, let alone ongoing fines. I felt trapped, my home no longer a sanctuary but a battleground. Then Karen upped the ante. One morning, I found a contractor's truck parked outside, hired by the HOA to assess my pond for drainage. The guy looked apologetic, saying he was just following orders. I sent him away, but not before he let slip that Karen had a big garden party planned, her annual showcase of her perfect yard, where she'd parade her influence to the neighborhood elite. That's when I stumbled across something in the bylaws I'd overlooked, a clause about community water management. It was as vague as the rest, but it mentioned a rarely used overflow valve tied to the neighborhood's drainage system located near my property. An idea sparked, risky and bold, but it felt like my only shot. The thought lingered, dangerous and tempting, as I watched her smirk from across the street, planning her victory lap. The pressure was mounting. The HOA A sent a final notice. Drain the pond in 48 hours, or they'd do it themselves. Lily overheard me on the phone with the lawyer, her eyes wide with fear. "Are they taking Bubbles and Goldie?" she asked, her voice trembling. I hugged her tight, promising I'd fix it, but inside I was unraveling. The clock was ticking, and Karen's grip on Sunny Acres felt unbreakable. As the 48-hour deadline loomed, I stared at the overflow valve hidden in the brush near my property line, a relic from the neighborhood's old drainage system. The bylaw's clause on community water management echoed in my mind. It allowed residents to activate emergency overflows if water levels posed a community risk. Karen's garden party was set for that afternoon. Her yard transformed into a spectacle of white tents, blooming flowers, and catered tables, all to flaunt her unchallenged authority. Guests were arriving, their cars lining the street, laughter floating over the fences. I knew what I had to do. With Lily safely at her friend's house, I turned the valve, releasing a controlled surge from the upstream reservoir tied to the system's old dam-like structure. Water rushed through the underground pipes, bubbling up in strategic spots, right into Karen's meticulously planned event. The flood wasn't catastrophic, but it was precise and devastating in its pettiness. Rivulets turned into streams, soaking the tent legs and muddying the pristine lawn. Tables tipped as the ground softened, sending platters of hors d'oeuvres sliding into the grass. Guests yelped in surprise, their fancy shoes sinking into the muck, while Karen's face twisted from smug satisfaction to sheer horror. Her award-winning roses, the centerpiece of her display, wilted under the unexpected deluge, petals scattering like defeated confetti. The water, drawn from the very system she lorded over, had turned her showcase into a soggy disaster. I watched from my window, heart pounding, as chaos unfolded, neighbors scrambling, Karen barking orders that went unheeded. The absurdity hit me. Her rules, meant to control, had backfired spectacularly. Word spread like the water itself. By evening, the HOA board called an emergency meeting, but this time the room buzzed with unrest. Neighbors who'd silently endured Karen's tyranny now voiced their grievances. Mr. Jenkins recounted the treehouse incident. Others chimed in about arbitrary fines for bird feeders or holiday lights. My activation of the valve, I explained in a calm email to the board, was a legitimate use of the bylaws to address an imminent water imbalance, a phrase I delifted straight from their own documents. The lawyer I'd consulted confirmed it. No laws broken, just a clever exploitation of their vague language. Karen's attempts to rally support fell flat. Her soaked party had exposed her as the petty tyrant she was, her influence washed away in the mud. In the days that followed, the consequences rippled through Sunny Acres. The board, facing backlash, voted to review and revise the bylaws, stripping out the obscure clauses that had given Karen free rein. She resigned as president, citing personal reasons, but everyone knew the truth. Her power had been diluted, her reputation tarnished. Whispers followed her at the grocery store, and her once impeccable yard bore the scars of the flood, a daily reminder of her overreach. For me, the fines were dropped, the pond deemed compliant after a hasty re-evaluation. Lily and I sat by the water that night, Bubbles and Goldie swimming undisturbed, her laughter a balm to the stress I carried. Our sanctuary was safe, but more than that, I'd reclaimed a sense of agency in a place that had felt oppressively controlled. The long-term impact reshaped the community. New board members, including Mr. Jenkins, emphasized fairness over nitpicking. Potlucks returned without the undercurrent of fear, and neighbors shared stories of past injustices, forging bonds that Karen's regime had eroded. Property values held steady, but the atmosphere lightened. Kids built forts without permits. Gardens flourished in vibrant chaos. I even helped draft clearer rules, ensuring no one else faced excessive water nonsense. Yet, the victory came with reflection. HOAs meant to protect too often empowered the power-hungry, turning homes into battlegrounds over trivialities. Months later, as autumn leaves skimmed the pond's surface, I pondered how close I'd come to losing it all. Karen moved away eventually. Her house sold to a young family who waved hello without judgment. Sunny Acres wasn't perfect, but it was freer, a testament to standing up against absurdity. The experience taught me that pettiness thrives in silence, but courage can flood it out, leaving room for real community. And so, in the quiet evenings with Lily, watching the koi dance, I wondered, how many more hidden valves are out there, waiting for someone to turn them and wash away the tyrants in our backyards? What small act of defiance could change your neighborhood forever?